All right. Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all having yourselves a fantastic start to the AM here. Happy Friday, right? Nice little week. Yeah, see how things kind of come together today or what sort of the plan is. And we have a very busy calendar here from a Fed speaker perspective, right? There's a lot more than what's here, but we got, okay, some Fed speak here at 7:30, some at 9, and some here at 1. And then obviously we got the ramifications there of yesterday's Powell's F-bomb here. Let me just change the charts. And so it'd be very interesting to basically see how markets now react to that first essentially sell-off, right? That we've now seen in the last few days. So this morning, we're getting kind of call it a middle of the range gap up, right? And we're getting a little bit stuck here. So if we're going to open up in the middle of that range, right, we're going to want to be a little bit cautious, especially with the VIX where it's at, right? 14.86. Not really sure if this yesterday, or at least on the index level, is going to be our most reliable kind of breakdown triggers, right? So we're maybe going to want to find some other names here that are continuing to show us some relative strength, in either direction, and then kind of pick and choose sort of the path that we want to go from there. So with that being said, right, let's start kind of mapping things out here a little bit and figure out how we want to finish off this week very strong. So good morning, Clark, Rose, Joel, Craig, Brian, Jonathan, Joe, and Randall. Hope you guys are all having yourselves fantastic days here so far. And yeah, let's get after it here today. So what would we call the count here on the SPY? Is this something that we're concerned about? What's maybe the narrative of this candle tell us that is maybe different to the candle shape? Yeah, like Ben, you're getting pretty close there, right? So inconsistent story, but what else about this candle tells us an inconsistent story? So if we were to break down this characteristics, so let's break down, right? What is this? This is both a higher high, right, and a lower low, and a full body bearish candle. And then we're kind of gapping up in the middle of that range, right? So that's sort of the narrative here that's maybe a little bit not convincing, right? Or like it's still kind of a bit of a bullish characteristic here. It's just a pullback from this week's volume. And now you're opening up in the middle of that range, right? Opening up essentially in the middle of the weekly range. You're kind of being told a little bit of an inconsistent story or an inconsistent narrative. So I'm not super stoked on this. Like it doesn't feel like we have a very clear bit of price action. So the new move, right, would be to either look for a pullback, right, or a find support off of these lows, or to play reversals off of these highs. But in either direction, like I'm not sure if we're going to get enough range to justify that. So this feels like this could just be setting up as an inside bar day here today. So everyone's counts are correct, but we just want to identify that higher high here and just know that, hey, the higher high and the lower low, although it's a good story, now paired with sort of like middle of the range gap up, we're kind of being told indecision. So yes, okay, it's the gap up that's faded and now reversed. But that's I think the one thing that's slowing me down here just a little bit. It's not as convincing as it could be, especially because much of that sell-off here, right, came in the afternoon post Powell speaking. Right, so it's kind of like that relief sell-off almost. Not really, Nate. I don't have a reason to be bearish. Like the VIX isn't telling me that it's sustainable. So 14.83, I don't get consistent sell-off at that range. So this for me still looks like it's a dip buy opportunity until proven otherwise. This isn't enough to convince me proven otherwise yet. What I need, right, is the VIX to get 17, 18, creep up towards that 20 handle and imply more volatility. So until that happens, I pretty much hard for me to think that I can sustain bearish price action, at least on the index level. Like maybe on some other names, if there's like an earnings catalyst or something, a little bit more flexibility. But for now, I don't think this bit of price action has really done much to invalidate the momentum we've established here since, say, the 20th or the 27th or 30th. So I'm not sure if I'm ready to front run the trend or like the personality shift yet. Hey, Igor, how's it going? And then if we get breakout, sure, but I'm not sure if that's going to be the primary element here today. Okay, QQQ. How do we feel about this? Yeah, double check that one, Igor. Yeah, very similar to SPY. Maybe on this narrative, right, what I'd prefer is to find support off of the trend line, right? See if that acts as support versus like a pure fake out. But again, right, we're being told a little bit of an indecisive narrative here in the middle of that range. This is a gap up here, Igor. This is a gap up. All right, yesterday's close was 69.90. We're currently 371.60-ish. So it's a 2 out of 3. Yeah, spot on, Craig. Spot on. It's a red candle, right, which tells story to the downside. It's increasing volume, right, which is another tick for a bear case to the downside. But the gap up is contrary to the bearish narrative, right? So if we were to get a 3 for 3, we'd want all three elements to be telling us a bearish story. The gap up is positive, right, which is a bullish story. So it would be a 3 for 3 if the gap down or the gap was like 368-ish or less than the current one. But when it's a gap up, then only 2 out of the 3 elements are telling us a bearish story. So strong red candle, strong red volume, not strong red price action so far. So we need to see strong bearish price action to step in and identify or reclaim control. So when we're using the 3 for 3 system, we're basically saying, okay, here's what we have that's saying trending. Here's what we're missing. Let's see that missing piece of information step in. So in theory, right, if you're going to be bearish, you now want to see bearish price action step in and invalidate that bullish PA. Good, good. And then still right on the index level, I'm going to say NA to the downside. Okay, Apple. What's unique here? So compared to the indexes, it's a red candle, but it's a red candle with what? Yeah, higher high, higher low, right? So kind of like we're seeing quote unquote bullish characteristics here, even though it's a red candle. So it's maybe a bit of like a false flag operation, right? So what would we want to see here, or what would we need to see if we're going to be bullish to want to continue this price action higher? Can't really look for dip buys. Hey, Anton, how you doing? Man, just ask a lot of questions, right? Participate in the stream. You know, get involved. If you signed up through the course, you've got 20 days of access in here. So, you know, feel free to take advantage of that and ask questions. And yeah, let me know how I can help. So, yeah, Apple, right? Higher high, higher low. We want to see breakout over yesterday's high. And then what's the maybe standard? So Joel, you're spot on. Well, now give me like the, what would we need to see to trust a breakout? Yeah, exactly. High. Well, maybe not. Maybe need highest volume of the week, but definitely bigger vol than what we saw yesterday. So higher than any bearish volume this week, I would say for sure, because we've seen a lot of bullish momentum. So we want to basically ride this wave, but invalidate the selling pressure. So bigger breakout than anything we saw yesterday would be best case scenario. So bull case, right? Bigger vol than yesterday. And then we're going to go like call it 184.50. You know what? I might just do 185. And then we're just going to be targeting right that next point of contact on that trend line. Okay. Tesla. So how do we feel about Tesla here? What is maybe unique about this versus any of the names here? Or if we were to be like, we want a contrary, we want a, I don't know, like a hedge against our technical analysis here today. What's unique about Tesla, or what would give us confidence that Tesla could potentially be that? As long as the volume's fine, Clark, not really. So as long as the volume continues to be very impressive, then I'm okay to get a breakout opportunity here, right? Because trend line wise, contextually not too bad, and we could be like a little bit of a squeeze. So this could end up being expanded for a long time. But what I would need to see is a building momentum standard. So I'm going to trust the volume here and then allow that to sort of dictate terms. If I don't see kind of that impressive volume standard, then I'm going to be very cautious to force anything that isn't there. Oh, Anton, sorry, I didn't realize you joined on the month-to-month. So yeah, man, send me and you should get an onboarding email with all your info and stuff like that. Yeah, work through that. I'll send you a Google Drive, or send me a message in Discord once you're in there, and I'll send you a Google Drive where you can kind of work through a bunch of stuff this weekend. But it's also like, so Tesla, right? First name here that's given us a clean lower low, right? And lower high. So it's the cleanest indication of bearish price action on a possible trend line breakdown. So yesterday we were talking about how we maybe wanted to see dip buyers, you know, kind of find support inside that sort of range on a kind of volume standard that was impressive. Well, we never got that volume standard on a reversal candle, and this thing just ended up selling all day long, right? So this is showing us probably the most relative weakness here, paired with a little bit of a news narrative, with there being some union news on Tesla. So union's obviously never good for the stock market. I'm sure that's probably the word they hate the most. So always a bit of a negative or pessimistic situation. Now we want to be a little bit careful as this thing creeps up towards 200, right? We've seen it have a pretty nasty reaction around that zone. So I would say that we essentially have like that gap here, or that range from like 206 to 193, and I really wouldn't want to go too far like past that. But if we're going to be bearish, this is the best scenario, or the best thing to be bearish on, even though we maybe won't get the most amount of name or fills we want on this security, right? So you know, we want to see a breakdown under like this 207, then you got space towards 200 eventually, but this would be really the best case bear scenario here. And it's just showing us, yeah, a different story versus everything else we've seen here so far today. And then what's this count? That kind of confirms its uniqueness. Yeah, 3 for 3, right? First one we've seen here so far today. So on a technical level, it's gonna be hard for us to overwhelm that volume standard. So no bull case here today. This is kind of going to be our counter trend play. Okay. And then from there, we can kind of go like towards 194, just $2 along the way. Yeah, there should be a link in the email. Send me, if you don't get the link, it'll be in the, just send me your username in here and I'll add you as a friend. Do that. Okay, Microsoft, what's unique here? What does it remind you guys of? And maybe what should we be thinking about? So what's unique about Microsoft, guys? What's unique here? Yeah, it's 1 out of 3, right? Not great, but also maybe a little bit extended. So price action here is telling us, I think I should maybe chill out on this one a little bit, right? Like we talked about maybe the Bollinger Bands being extended on Apple. This clearly looks more, and we're closer towards those all-time highs. So I'd almost rather see all-time highs now get established as support, find or consolidate around that area, and then break out through. This feels a little bit of a sticky zone here with like $1 worth of upside if we can get an actual move higher. So I think maybe we can see some of that residual volume now step into Apple and give us follow through towards like 190, and maybe Microsoft here short term ends up being one to watch until we establish kind of support at all-time highs or a high volume rejection off of all-time highs. So weak bears here at very extended price action just makes me nervous that there's not too much follow through left here short term. So I'd rather see this close up a little bit, firm up a bit, right? And then I can get a nice narrative. So short term, I'm going to wait on this. You could look at this to the downside potentially, but I think Tesla's a much cleaner narrative there. So I think that's the smoother play. I'd like to have seen a bigger volume standard to have actually identified that trending PA stepping in. So if I'm actually going to play that reversal, it would need to be just super aggressive volume. And I'm not sure I'm getting that narrative. So I'd rather wait it out or filter out a smoother trade. It just looks too much like all the narratives we're getting here, right? Opening up middle. So the middle open generally tells us either like indecision, right? Or inside bar, or we're looking for kind of like a narrative to step back in. And until that volume does, it's just hard for us to trust that this candle is actually telling us a story that we like. Okay, so we're gonna wait on this one for the day. Okay, Amazon. What does this kind of maybe look like here? 3 points of contact. Yeah, a little bit extended. It kind of also reminds me a bit of that Tesla yesterday. Yeah, you're spot on. Joel R, spot on. Right? Where did Tesla go? Did I get rid of it on here? Whoops. But if we were to bring up Tesla, right, kind of has like that trend line. I feel like Amazon has a little bit of the same look here. It has like a very similar looking trend line that could crack. Or maybe Tesla was like 1 day ahead, right? Sorry, I'm dragging this up my watch list. Apologies. Right, so there's that trend line right on Tesla, and we kind of feel like maybe have a similar look here today on Amazon at extended PA. So if we could see big volume step in here, there's maybe a little bit more of a reason to think like, hey, we could break this down, right? So like a 140 megavol crack on biggest vol of the week. We need the volume to crack as much as my voice did there, right? If we could break down on that kind of standard, then yeah, I think there's maybe a narrative that we could fall in love with that kind of reminds me, right, of this yesterday. Like that feels like a very similar pattern. So if I can now take advantage of this, see that trend step in, that feels like this could break down. You could, like, you can make the argument, right? Extended Bollinger Bands and stuff like that. But I just like this trend line here, right? Like we saw this trend line breakdown act as just an awesome trigger there yesterday. So I think, yeah, to a certain extent, Microsoft, yes, but you don't have that same trend line you can draw here. So I'm not as convinced. Whereas on Amazon, I feel like this is a slightly easier setup trigger to break down. Like I've got to move 1%, got to move just a little bit. Microsoft, I got to start to move like $3-4 before I can start to get that kind of follow through. So the probability maybe is a little bit higher here on this than it would be on getting like a setup trigger there. And the volume standard for us to overcome is probably easier on Amazon as well. Like Bollinger Band wise, I would say spot on. They look very similar, but I think that's like a good contextual clue, right? Where we can combine or combine signals, right? So now you're extended price action and you lose a trend line. All of a sudden, right? That's a slightly stronger narrative than just you're at extended price action. So we can like stack up, right? Bearish stories to almost like build up a cleaner path. Thank you. So from 140, right, where would we kind of go? We're targeting trend line, point of contact to point of contact, right? So from 140, we then go 138.50, 137.50, 136.50. And then through there, we go like 136 down towards 134. So just go buck along the way. Looks good. All right. Like what, Ryan, just go back to your comment there a little bit. The reason why this trend line on Amazon is important is it gives us a reason to not be scared away by that decreasing volume. So we could argue that that's like consolidation waiting for a breakdown crack. And so we have like a reason to expect a volume trigger to still basically step in here and create that trending price action. Whereas on Microsoft, if we were to get that kind of candle, we would have expected that volume reaction to have occurred on that candle print. So it's almost like this gives us an excuse to delay that reaction an extra day, which is why I think it's preferable here in this context. Because we can justify this as consolidation, whereas Microsoft is harder to justify as consolidation based off of yesterday's PA. Okay, Meta, how do we feel about this? Yeah, pretty wiki price action. One of the only green names that's gapping down, right? So that's one thing that kind of sticks out a little bit here. One of the only names that's actually gapping down besides like Tesla when we looked at it. And it's the most significant gap down that we've seen. So higher high, higher low, weak looking candle, increasing volume, gap down. Like it feels like every element is telling me a different story here. So yeah, Joel, it's definitely a 2 out of 3. You're spot on there. But it's like not a very... Yeah, it's a gap down, yeah. So it's like one of the only names that's not given us actual... Like this feels like every story is different here, right? Every bit of information is different. So I think this is still probably one to watch versus trade here. Okay, anyone looking at any other names here this morning? Not going to look at AMD, NVIDIA. Nothing too crazy. We had Powell speaking yesterday, right? And so that's where we saw a lot of that selling pressure step in, like this drop was that Powell speaks. Sometimes you just get a little bit of a delayed reaction in some of these names. Yeah, give me a sec here, man. Not a disturbance at all, Anton. Not a disturbance at all. Yeah, anyone got any tickers they want to go over here this AM? All right, Anton, send you a friend request. All right, so let's take a look at Netflix here first, and then we'll take a look at coin. Okay, so what's the count here on Netflix? Three points of contact there, right? So you got that trend line, increasing volume on this, right? Bear candle. You'd want to see it break down probably under 433.50, and then target point of contact to point of contact down towards like that 430 shelf, and then could continue lower, maybe down towards that area. But this volume profile in general, not very impressive. So you'd probably want to see it get to that kind of outlier standard here, because there's not enough volume to it to think that that's actually building momentum. So momentum, right? Yes, it needs to be bigger than the previous candle, but contextually, this is like a snail's pace. So don't get too stuck, right, on like an increasing volume standard here until it's very, very impressive. Okay, coin. Big rejection here. I wonder if this is how much of this is the Sam Bankman fraud getting his sentence. So post earnings and FTX trial in the same week, like that's a nervy weekend for coin. So what's interesting about this one, right? Obviously high volume rejection. You're getting a 2 out of 3. Where did it get stuffed at? Who can see it? Yeah, right. Got stuck right at 100 bucks. So if I were to look for an entry short here, I mean, I think that's the most logical area, right, for the correct reaction. Let it retrace until it can break down from there. I don't think it's worth really chasing it if it moves from that. So that $100, I mean, clear rejection. And then someone else said Google. So what's this? This is a 2 out of 3 without what? Maybe a slightly cleaner trend line. Yeah, so needs to crack here, lose the trend line on some volume. Preferably, I guess that's like what, 129.85-ish? Crack down through there, then you can start to go, okay, 127, 124, right? Fill that gap. And then eventually maybe down towards the lower end of that trend line. Kind of looks a little bit like Tesla too, right? Similar spot where it has that trend line to break down through. Right? Like similar spot in the Bollinger Bands, right? At that midline. So that's a point of resistance, right? Inside the BBs. Could now crack from that point and then continue lower. All right, guys, I'm just going to make myself a quick cup of coffee here before the session starts. I'll be back at it in a second or two. But yeah, market opens in 3 minutes. So we'll do a quick little rundown here as the session is starting. Obviously, same deal like always. If you guys have any questions, please pop in the chat and we'll answer them right away. All right, so that's market open here, guys, right? Let's see where those narratives step in here this AM, right? SPY expecting an inside bar, right? QQQ expecting an inside bar. So we're basically anticipating consolidation here until proven otherwise. And we want to be a little bit careful not to be too aggressive, right? Until we get that perfect A+ setup. So index cooperation, high volume standards, impressive PA is going to be sort of the base that we need to see kind of get established here so far this AM. So if we don't see that, or unable to get that kind of price action to show up, then I'm going to be very patient and just be happy to sit on a relatively small week. So nothing for me to force here, right? Nothing for me to overtrade. I want to be very cautious and deliberate here with my decision making and just not force something that isn't there. So good volume pace here so far, right, on Amazon, but we need to see it get biggest volume of the week. Zoom out, right, and watch that standard. So we know we got to get it up towards Monday's level. We don't get it to Monday's level, right, just zoom out and look at this context. Not been very impressive volume all week, so it should not be challenging for us to get there. If we can't get there, then the price action is telling us is that it's not very strong. There's no reason for us to want to rush to make a decision in price action that's just frothing about, right? So our objective here is to find good waves that we can ride, not just kind of small choppy ones. Those end up being frustrating and a waste of our time. So let's not focus on those kind of low probability plays, right? We need volume to step in and give us confirmation that our narratives are correct. And if we aren't able to get those confirmations, then I have no reason to force any decisions or to overtrade. We get a breakout. What's our best breakout setup today? Is there anything here? Do we have a breakout setup here today? I would agree, Apple probably the best, but it's not like so good we have to be on pins and needles staring at it, right? Like it's nothing here too crazy. Right, base expectation here, guys, right? As long as index remains within yesterday's confines, pretty challenging for us to have trending PA. or to front run the trend unless we're getting like Apple, Microsoft, and Tesla all cracking at once. So we need cooperation and we need consistent stories here. I want to be a little bit careful, right? Inside bar on the index level kind of promotes just general fuckery on the market, right? Where you're going to get a lot of fake outs. You're going to see a lot of dojis. You're going to see a lot of stuff that looks like this opening 10-min bar here so far. All right, like we're seeing so many opening 10-min dojis. So the idea here is to be a little bit patient, see what kind of tricks they're going to play, and then, you know, we're going to have to slow down. I'm not sure if the reality here is we're not getting a ton of breakout looks, which means that in general, we're not expecting too much price action to occur in the first 15 to 20 minutes, right? Our priority here is going to be Apple. That's really our only breakout look. And then everything else, we're kind of looking for a bit more mature price action later on in the morning session. So we do need to be very patient here today and have the, I don't know, just the right expectations, right, of what's out there. And so much Fed speak, so many possible narratives. We've got to be cautious and patient until we have no choice but to trade. Yeah, I do, Joe. It's about $2 or $4 a month for NYSE data, $2 or $4 a month for NASDAQ data. I do pay for it. I do think it's an essential addition. Okay, right. Not bad volume from Apple, all things considered, right? Pretty good volume. So a bigger volume base than what we saw yesterday, which is positive. So maybe now on this 15-min or 30-min time frame, we could continue to get a nice narrative here. Yeah, not bad. Microsoft's a little bit more challenging though. got more to work before it breaks out, right? So I would need to see probably a breakout over all-time highs, and for those all-time highs to settle, it's a little bit more intimidating. So 50 cents or so on Apple here, right? So this is really what I'm waiting for. Okay, it's about 30 cents here, right? So continuing to watch. It's got to be perfect before I'm willing to trade this. Anything else catching your guy, like your guys' eyes here so far? For me, it looks pretty slow. Just look pretty, yeah, pretty stock still. Yeah, we need to see trapped bears here still at some point. It's a different type of game there, Antonin, because what I'd be doing, right, is it would take me so long to get into a position that it would, like, I would be massaging 1 or 2 trades a day, but it would take me like 6 hours to get into a trade, and I would have to execute like 150 trades to get into one position, right? So I was trying to buy like 40 mil at a time, so I can't just like do that in one click. Yeah, great question, Randall. So basically the main thing here is when I started looking at the left, I wanted to go for a breakout above that 184.50, but then just kind of saw this candle's resistance. So we had about like 50 cents of kind of like for that next level. So I just didn't think that that was like a realistic, like I was not going to get a realistic risk reward to kind of justify that. Right. So like one of my biggest rules, right, back then was that I was never allowed to be more than 5% of market volume at any given time. So if you're trading 40 mil, right, how many shares of that of Apple is that, right? That's like, I can't even do the math off my head. Let's do a quick breakdown here. Can't remember what Apple price was back then. So I'm buying approximately 215,000 shares, right? Like if I'm trying to get into a position. So how much has been traded here so far, right? $6.9 million to the upside. You got to be really careful, right? Like managing, and then I have to only get it in at a specific price. Well, that's the 5% rule, right? So if we were pretty consistently above that 5%, then yeah, we would move markets. We would start to generate a lot of slippage for ourselves. We would start to get a lot of like execution pain points in that context. Because you'd essentially be the majority of the liquidity. So you can't really sell to yourself. That's exactly it, Joel. And that's why we can afford like to be so patient, right? Because we can like get in our sizing and have a pretty significant day when like it's not even something that they're interested in. Yeah. Dude, the volume on an ETF, like it's just so smooth. Like you're surprised how quickly you execute trades. Yeah, like if you were trading like Asian hours, for example, you'd be trading some like random Korean company, and you got to get $40 million into this position, or you're trying to get 40 mil in. It'll take you like a week, right? And then the pain in the ass is when it starts to sell off. You can't get out, right? So you see your P&L just bleed out like crazy on those kind of names. It's so helpless, and you just get fucking yelled at. I see your thesis here. I get why you do that. Pretty extended PA. I maybe want to see a little bit more volume here. That's pretty aggressive opening volume, right? Way like biggest of the week by far. So I'm not sure if that's really a full indication here that bears have reclaimed control. So I'd want to see maybe if you could invalidate that on a longer time frame, because that's a very aggressive volume standard to open things up on. This just feels like it could fake you out here before giving you the real move. Yeah. So what is it that you're, I guess, interested in here, Jonathan? Have you taken a look at the Think Markets contract specifications page? What's the math thing you stuck on so far? So one lot should be $1 per tick. In all things considered, right, we haven't really moved anywhere in the SPY. So we're kind of continuing to consolidate until proven otherwise. Yeah, this could be that fake out here on AMD now. Sorry, I can't remember who was asking. Jonathan, did that yeah, try out, like, buy one lot, man. Play around with the position sizing, bide your flow, but it should be one lot is $1. Like, remember, guys, right? You're opening or like these demo accounts you guys are playing on. If you're playing on one, it's consequence free. So find your flow, test the position sizing that you want to trade with, right? Get your operational stuff kind of where you're happy, right? Play around with the different platforms, find your rhythm, right, within that context. But the futures, yeah, I mean, you should be able to get huge sizing on this too if you want, right? Right, so meta could be worth watching here if you give me enough volume. Not sure if it's going to give me that pop, though. I don't think it's going to. Yeah, so far so slow here, guys. So far so slow. So what would we need to see here as a bare minimum for this meta? Yeah, I would say I want bigger than that any red bar we've seen here so far today, right? So that would be for me the base standard that I would need to see to get over this. But yeah, like I don't really like I didn't really have a plan for this here pre-market, so I'm not sure if I really want to trust this now. A little bit of an outlier, so I want to be a bit cautious just in case. Yeah, 100%. Like Nate, I would not want to chase a breakout here if the indexes are stuck, because then it's kind of behaving like an outlier, right? So that for me would be a little bit challenging to trust that PA. So that's all. That's ultimately why I need a little bit of index cooperation. But yeah, Ryan, you're spot on. It's a bit of a snooze fest day here. So much Fed speak. I guess it kind of makes sense. Could very well be like that's a pretty interesting close here. It's good volume for sure on Meta. So next target, right, would be next point of contact 326 and then 330. So to get that 326, right, you need a pretty aggressive pullback here. That would be your target, right? This would be your stop loss. I'm personally not going to trade this. And then to work backwards, right, your ideal entry price would be around that 323.88. It'd be great risk reward if you could get it. But yeah, I would say if the index is not cooperating here, this screams like it's going to fake out, right? So that would be your entry there on Meta. It's almost like Meta got into the zone and then just like stops. This is kind of weird. All right, so if we were to play around with this, right, on the demo account, for example, this would be your first entry there, right? 323.88. On Meta, I think you can buy 1,000 shares at a time. We can play around with that, right? So stop loss here called 323-ish. Boom, right? There'd be your first order. And then you look for another one, same stop loss here. Boom, okay, so now I have 2 trades open on the sim. Stop loss, both ones, 323. One entry at 323.58, the other entry at 323.82. So average price 323.70-ish. And I'm only at half size still, right? So I'll just practice, right? If you want to get better at your execution timing, you want to get better at finding your flow, put in the reps, right? Not trading this with any real money. But if you want to practice your execution, right, the only way you're going to get good at it is to actually practice. Okay, right now one chunk is here green, so we can get this thing to maybe get back up towards 324, right? You start to scale out, you start to de-risk. You're set, right? Not in this trade, not alerting it, right? But just so many people are struggling with their execution timing and practicing with their execution. So we can start to practice that, right? And I should get stopped out here in about 5 cents. Boom. Okay. Both my trades were closed. Hard stop loss. Glad I traded out on sim, right? And I lost on that trade $600. And I had 1,000 shares at one point, right? So made it easier for me to lose my max loss number. Yep. Lost less than that. Okay. Yeah, seems like everything's kind of cracking here, Joel. Not going to get enough volume on Tesla to be able to justify that, right? Because look at the opening bullish volume. The opening bullish volume was biggest of the week, right? So for me to now say that bears are in control, I'm not going to get that standard here. Again, indexes aren't breaking down. Indexes continue to remain inside that range. What do you get on Tesla? Get the fake out, right? You don't get that trend cooperation. So yeah, I think this is telling me I should not be trading here. So you guys, any questions here about price action? I mean, Tesla might actually get there volume wise, Joel. Huh. Might get there. I like your logic. I mean, you're fading the highs, right? Which I like, but be careful going into earnings, right? That's going to be a bit of a random catalyst. That's on Tuesday. So if you're going to be swinging with the surge account or with your funded account into earnings, your trade will be closed. You want to take it as like a lottery in your own personal account. I can't really tell you not to, but in your, if you try to do it with the funded account, your order will get canceled prior to earnings. Yeah, that makes sense then. You could play some of that premium and stuff like that moving too, going into earnings. So yeah, I understand that. Logical at the highs, good size rejection. Yeah, makes a ton of sense. So Meta didn't miss out on anything, right? Apple didn't miss out on anything. Okay, guys, I'm chilling here. There is nothing for me to do. The horizontal lines, Igor, are usually at daily highs and lows, weekly highs and lows, and monthly highs and lows. That's pretty much how I'm setting those white lines. So I'm looking to break out in this context, right, above the previous day's high, and then just rounding up to the nearest round number. And then in general, right, if I'm targeting like a set of daily line here, a daily high breakout, I'm targeting the next day's high to the left, right? And then if the next candle, right, the next high of day, the next candle high that's above that. So in this context, right, 339, we go right away to 340. Then from 340, I don't really see anything here until 342, right? Which is like these two highs here. And then above that, like I'm kind of just going $2 along the way or filling it out. So I wouldn't put too much stock into it. I'd literally just, okay, what was the previous day high? What was the previous day low? Is there something there that's in the way? Round up, round down. That's pretty much it. Any questions here, guys? Any questions? Sorry. I think that says a lot. Price action is putting me to sleep here. But yeah, anything you guys want to go over, anything you want to break down through, please let me know. Whoops. All right, guys. Any last questions here? Any last questions? Otherwise, I'm going to take off. I'm not interested in this. Yeah, very slow week. Honestly, one of these weeks, or these weeks where we get a ton of Fed speak prior or like throughout the entire week, it just slows us down. Like, look at the amount of like action, or the amount, right, of PA that was there, and then the lack of volume that we saw pretty much every single day this week, right? So ultimately, it's a bit unfortunate that we got that. It feels a little bit like summer conditions going into November. So I'm a bit surprised by that, but we should be getting pretty close towards our Fed blackout period, right? Starts to happen, and then hopefully a little bit of smooth PA. But that CPI on Tuesday is going to continue to be a big narrative as well, and it seems like we're on like hands basically, right, waiting for that to kind of drop. So if Powell's basically been speaking all week, and all the Fed presidents basically been speaking that inflation still could be hot and they might have to raise rates, that core CPI is going to be a really good indicator for us, how well that data is actually reacting, right, to the bond market and sort of the high interest rates that we've seen here recently. So we want to start to see the data cooperate, and the CPI is probably the most important element of that in the short term. So the idea here is that hopefully we do get a little bit of clarity, but we look at the week's price action, right, or the weekly range, fuck, like there's not really anything there for us. So like on the index level, we have to be pretty chill and pretty patient waiting for that. And I think ultimately this is probably why we didn't see too much, right? Like that's not a big range on the index. It's like the smallest range we've seen in maybe since first week of May, right? So pretty compressed price action means we're just not going to get very many setups. And these are the types of weeks, right, we kind of have to just protect ourselves from making dumb mistakes. Yeah, you too, Randall. Welcome to the team, man. Yeah, so it won't set you, won't allow you to set a limit price unless that it's like away from that price. So if you're looking for a buy order, it has to come back. Like it won't do it on the uptick, for example, right? So what that means is if you're like doing a buy order, the price has to be less than the current price. If you're doing a sell order, it has to be greater than the current price. So that's to come back in touch, essentially. Yeah, see you on Monday, Ryan. So yeah, Brian, the workaround there, right, if you don't want to use that, is use the market orders, but wait for the spread to cross. So what that means, right, if I were to bring up my demo account here, let's say I'm trading Apple and I want to get in at, we'll say my entry price, I want to see it get in at 184. I'm going to wait until this second number here, right, crosses the spread and that hits 184, and then I'll buy by market. But yeah, there are workarounds with the execution, but if you want to use the pending orders, has to be that way. If you want to do the market orders and you're waiting for a specific price, just watch the spread cross and then obviously fill in your stop loss, all those kind of details. So then boom, right? That would be my entry. So you guys, any questions here? Final call. Sounds good, Clark. Have yourself a great day, man. We'll see you on Monday. All right, sounds good, everyone. Well, have yourselves a fantastic weekend. I'm gonna think about a little bit what I put in the Discord there yesterday, right? About basically having everyone a Google Drive. So let me think about that, how to set that up perfectly. But yeah, good week, everybody. Lots of good questions. Very pleased with all the progression I saw from everyone. So let's keep stacking up that momentum, right? And keep finding those high conviction plays to take advantage of. Not a massive week by any means, but a nice little win on Apple there a few days ago. So we'll keep stacking them up, find our base hits, and then hopefully we'll get some cooperation sooner rather than later. But same deal like always, right? If you have any questions, hit me up outside of market hours and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Otherwise, have yourselves a great day and I'll see you all on Monday. Peace.